Every year, thousands of ordinary people commit acts that shock even the most seasoned investigators. What drives a seemingly normal person to cross that invisible line between right and wrong? Imagine sitting next to someone on the subway, smiling, nodding, and knowing they could, in a moment, do something unthinkable. Psychologists call it the banality of evil, the idea that darkness can hide behind ordinary faces. By the end of this story, you'll understand the hidden dark impulses of human behavior and why the people we trust most are sometimes capable of the unimaginable. The patterns are there, subtle but undeniable. And the question is, could it be someone you know? I'm Harris. You're watching Harris Psyche, where dark psychology meets disturbing human behavior. Munchausen Syndrome by Proxy is one of the darkest corners of human psychology, a place where care and harm collide in ways that are both shocking and hard to comprehend. It's a disorder rooted in control, deception, and the manipulation of trust, where a caregiver deliberately fabricates or induces illness in someone under their care, often a child, turning vulnerability into a weapon. At first glance, these are loving parents, attentive guardians, the people we instinctively trust. But beneath that facade can hide a disturbing mix of obsession, attention-seeking, and sometimes a chilling detachment from the suffering they create. In this story, we'll explore the psychology of the perpetrator, why someone would go to extreme lengths to make a child sick, to manufacture a life of hospital visits, medications, and pain, all for attention or control. We'll uncover the signs and red flags of this syndrome, the subtle behaviors that can alert families, schools, and medical professionals before tragedy strikes. And we'll examine some of the most notorious cases, including Gypsy Rose Blanchard, whose life became a shocking testament to the consequences of living under a web of lies and abuse. By the end of this journey, you'll see how ordinary homes can hide extraordinary darkness, and how even the most loving caregivers can be capable of unthinkable acts. This isn't just a story about illness, it's about human vulnerability, the hidden impulses that drive us, and the delicate line between care and control. The psychology of a caregiver who fabricates illness in a child is as disturbing as it is complex. At first glance, these individuals seem devoted, attentive, almost obsessively so. But beneath the surface lies a deep need for control, validation, and attention. In the case of Dee Dee Blanchard, Gypsy Rose's mother, this need manifested in a relentless pattern of deception. She convinced doctors, neighbors, and even extended family that Gypsy was severely ill, claiming she suffered from muscular dystrophy, leukemia, and cognitive disabilities, conditions that were, in reality, completely fabricated. Why would someone do this? Psychologists suggest it often stems from an intense desire to be needed, admired, or pitied, combined with a lack of empathy for the actual suffering they cause. In some cases, it's about maintaining power over another human being, turning vulnerability into a stage for their own attention. The caregiver becomes the center of a story only they control, one where they are always heroic, always indispensable. And tragically, the child becomes the unwitting pawn in a performance that can last years. But what's coming next is even more disturbing, because the signs of this manipulation often go unnoticed. Detecting Munchausen syndrome by proxy is notoriously difficult, not because the behaviors are hidden, but because they are woven into normal family routines. Hospitals see frequent visits, parents insist on tests, and children may seem unusually compliant or anxious, symptoms easily mistaken for genuine illness. Red flags can include unexplained or persistent medical problems that don't match test results, parents who are unusually knowledgeable about rare diseases, or caregivers who resist allowing others to provide medical history. Another warning sign is a child who appears withdrawn, fearful, or overly eager to please, often because they've been conditioned to hide the truth or fear punishment. In one documented case, a young girl presented with repeated hospitalizations for seizures that never occurred. Only when medical staff noticed inconsistencies between her symptoms and diagnostic tests did the truth emerge. The mother had been inducing the episodes herself. Recognizing these patterns requires a careful eye, intuition, and sometimes the courage to question what appears normal. Families, Educators and medical professionals must pay attention not only to the patient, but also to the interactions, the overbearing control, and the subtle manipulations that can reveal a far darker reality. As we move forward, the story of Gypsy Rose Blanchard will show us exactly what can happen when these signs are ignored, and how a life lived under constant deception can drive a person to desperate and ultimately tragic decisions. Gypsy Rose Blanchard's story is one of the most chilling examples of Munchausen syndrome by proxy in modern history. For years, her mother, Dee Dee, convinced everyone that Gypsy was gravely ill, confined to a wheelchair, and dependent on daily medications and surgeries. Doctors, neighbors, and even charitable organizations were deceived. But behind closed doors, Gypsy was healthy, forced to live a life dictated by lies, stripped of independence, and denied the freedom to grow up normally. The psychological toll was immense: isolation, fear, and a constant pressure to perform illness as reality. Gypsy's case is not unique. Across the globe, similar stories have emerged. In one case, a mother fabricated a rare blood disorder in her child, scheduling endless hospital visits and procedures, all to garner sympathy and attention from the community. In another, a caregiver induced seizures in a child, creating a web of emergency room trips that left medical staff baffled until the truth surfaced. These cases reveal a pattern. The caregiver's need for control and recognition consistently outweighs the child's well-being. Now, I'll tell you the darkest secret. These manipulations don't end with exposure. The legal and psychological consequences for everyone involved are often harrowing. In Gypsy Rose's case, after years of abuse, she conspired to end her mother's control, culminating in Dee Dee's murder. Gypsy faced trial and served time in prison, while mental health evaluations revealed the deep trauma she endured. The legal system wrestled with the balance between accountability and victimization, a complex dilemma that challenges judges, lawyers, and psychologists alike. Other victims of MSBP often require intensive therapy to recover from years of fabricated illness, medical procedures, and emotional abuse. Some children struggle with trust, anxiety, or identity issues long after the abuser is removed from their lives. Society, too, grapples with these stories. Charitable organizations and hospitals rethink protocols, schools increase vigilance, and families are urged to recognize the subtle signs before tragedy strikes. The connection between all these behaviors will shock you. The relentless need for control, the manipulation of reality, the careful construction of an alternate life, all point to a chilling truth. Human impulses, when left unchecked, can manifest in the most extraordinary and destructive ways. Gypsy Rose's story, like others before her, forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about trust, power, and the darkness that can hide behind the face of care. Ultimately, these cases leave us with a haunting realization. The line between love and obsession can be razor thin, and when crossed, the consequences ripple far beyond the walls of any home, leaving lives forever altered by the shadow of deception. Munchausen Syndrome by Proxy, the psychology of manipulation, and the haunting stories of Gypsy Rose and others reveal a chilling reality. The very people entrusted with care can sometimes become the architects of suffering. Control, attention, and obsession can twist love into something unrecognizable, leaving victims trapped in a web of deception that lasts years. We've seen the red flags, the subtle manipulations, and the devastating consequences when these patterns go unnoticed. Next time you see manipulative behavior, remember these patterns hidden in human psychology, the quiet, persistent signs that something is amiss even in seemingly ordinary lives. Awareness can be the first line of defense, and understanding the mind's darkest impulses is key to protecting the vulnerable. In the next video, we'll dive into positive thinking and manifestation cults and uncover even darker truths about the human mind, where hope, belief, and control intersect in ways you might never expect.